This video is to demonstrate the new interface between Solid Edge and Design Data Manager. This new integration is available from November 2023. This enhancement is only for Solid Edge at this point in time. We are working on the SolidWorks interface. We're then going to work on the Inventor interface, the Creo interface, and the CAD interface. Ultimately, we will be making these changes for all of the supported CAD applications. I'd like to begin by going to my DDM server machine, and my DDM server is hosted in a virtual machine. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to adjust the virtual machine settings for the network, because it's very common these days that people are working remotely on a wide area network across a VPN connection. Wide area networks have slower latency, so the speed of the line is slower and the bandwidth available is a lot less than you would have on a local network in the same building as your DDM server. So in order to demonstrate the performance of this enhancement, we're going to take a worst case scenario and we're going to restrict the network to 45 megabits per second up and down, and we're going to apply a 10 millisecond latency up and down. So this is to simulate working on a wide area network. If I go back to my client PC, and just to test that, I'm going to run a ping command on my DDM server, and we see here that the average ping response is 26 milliseconds. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is go back to my DDM server, because under System Settings File Server, we now have the ability to turn on and off a new client background file uploader utility. I'm going to leave mine on at all times because I believe it will make things quicker on a local and wide area network, but this is where this function is enabled. I'm going to log into DDM. Okay, and it will log in a little bit slower because I'm working on a wide area network. Okay, now I've got a saved search at the top of my screen here because I've got some sample assemblies that we've been working with in order to test this new integration. The next thing I want to do is to clear my local file cache. DDM has the ability to store files locally on your computer in a cached area, and in order to demonstrate the first time loading performance, I'm going to clear my cache so there's nothing on my local computer. We will then load for a second time so that you can see the speed of the loading, because we've improved the caching performance. I'm going to choose this assembly. Now, I haven't called, so if I'm in Solid Edge, you could do search and open from here, which is the current use model, but now what we've allowed you to do is to just jump to DDM. You don't need to call it from CAD, and you can double click to load. This is a new enhanced load window that's giving you much more information. We understand the load status. Do we have the files locally, etc. already? Now it's telling us that there are 96 total files to load, a total of 309 megabytes, and we do not have any files currently in the cache. So this is the first load from the server to the client machine. There is an option here to close this window after load. I'm going to leave it on so that we can see the load summary afterwards. You will notice when I select load, rather than trying to download 96 individual files from the server, we are loading them in batches. So we batch the files and we compress the files. Therefore, we're reducing the number of times that you hit the slow latency, and we're reducing the size of the files that we're bringing across the network to make it faster. You will notice that the first batch is a single file of 83 megabytes. It's bringing it down individually. I believe we have a setting to limit the batch size to 80 megabytes, but because this file is larger, it will go over. Now loading the second batch of 5, and there are 46 files totaling 71 megabytes. So the load has finished, and we can see that the total load time was 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Bearing in mind we are bringing 96 files across a wide area network. Okay, I'm going to close this dialog, and I'm going to remove my assembly from Solid Edge, and I'm going to clear my working folder. Now, the clear working folder command has a new interface, and this window will highlight if any of the files on my local computer have been modified since loading, or if there are any files inside my working folder that DDM is not aware of. So it's a much improved clear working folder facility. What we also have is the ability to back up the files. So you can keep the removed files for a number of days or up to a maximum size on a disk. We can clear the backup folders, or we can open and view the backup folders as well. So if you inadvertently remove something from your local working folder that you shouldn't, then you should be able to retrieve it from the backups. I'm going to clear my working folder now, because I want to reload my assembly again. But of course, this time it is already available in the cache on my local computer. So files in cache 309.4 megabytes. If I now choose to load, you'll see how fast it moves across the screen, the blue bar at the top. And this time, so it took a total of 4.4 seconds. The time to do the file server load was 0.24 seconds, so a quarter of a second, and the time to open it inside the CAD application was 4.1 seconds. So 94% of that time was opening it in CAD, not the DDM overhead. So this demonstrates the improved loading based on batching and compressing, and the improved caching, which greatly speeds up the load performance. Okay, so the next part of the demonstration is to show the improved save performance. We have reduced the number of menu options inside our embedded DDM menu within Solid Edge. This is a single save button. When I choose single save, DDM will analyze the files that you've got in your local session, and it will present you with what we call the single save window so that you can see the full structure of the design that you have loaded. Now, normally when you're working with designs, you would only typically be modifying a certain number of the files within an assembly, but in order to demonstrate the performance of the saving, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to expand all levels. I'm going to select all files. There's 167 rows, a total of 96 parts and assemblies, and I'm going to choose to overwrite every single one of them. So this is not typical, but it will demonstrate the performance of the saving. What we also have on the far right hand side here is the ability to switch on and off the generation of mass properties against every part and assembly. Also to switch off the generation of neutral files and thumbnails. I typically leave the thumbnails on, and the reason this is beneficial is because if you're working on something for a long period of time, you want the save to be as quick as possible, and at the end of your design session you could switch these back on as a final save and then generate all of your mass properties and neutral files. So I'm gonna actually cancel this because I've spent a long time explaining this window. So I'm going to cancel here, and I'm going to do that again without explaining so we can see how quick it is. So I choose save, we analyze the data, I'm going to select everything in my session, I'm going to overwrite every file and say go. So we're starting the save procedure. Now this window has the ability to be switched into advanced or simple mode, so if you don't want to see everything that's happening, then you can turn that off. It doesn't make any difference to the performance, and I personally like to see what's going on in the background. Now we've saved 96 files that took a total of 26.3 seconds to save across a wide area network. Okay, the reason it's so fast, I'm just going to close this dialog, is because we now have this background uploader tool. So as I showed you inside the DDM server environment, we have the ability to switch on the file background upload. So what's happening here, let me just bring this back, is we've prepared all of the files for save, and rather than the user having to sit and wait for the files to upload to the server, we've delivered them to the batch uploader in the background on our PC, and it is now doing the file upload similar to the way OneDrive works. And the real benefit of this is I can carry on designing without having to wait for the save to complete. So super fast, because we're not waiting for files to be uploaded to the server. Okay, so I'm going to bring this screen back so that we can fully appreciate how long this would normally have taken to save and how long the user would normally have to wait. Okay, in fact we're going to carry on, because if I continue to design, I might go through and make a load more changes, but this time when I do my save, I'm going to choose to include the neutral files and the mass properties. Again, I'm going to select everything, overwrite the files, and we'll run the save again. Now, just to fully appreciate how much work is going on here, we're saving 96 files across the internet. We're also updating the properties of every one of the files. We're now generating neutral step and PDF files. We're also updating the mass properties for every part and every assembly in our structure. And then we're sending all of those files back to the DDM server. So it really is a lot of work, and I have done lots of testing on this. Of all of the assemblies that we've tested, this enhancement to the solid edge load and save is at least 10 times faster than the previous version. So we're really pleased with what we've done here, very pleased. Okay, so we've nearly finished updating all of the files that we need to save. I'm going to reopen the background uploader. It finished the previous batch, and as you can see now, it's starting to save all of the new files. I don't have to wait for that, and as we can see here, the whole save took only 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and it's uploading all of these files in the background, 307 files. We don't have to wait for it. We can carry on designing. Okay. So to recap, we've improved the caching performance with DDM. We've improved the load performance of DDM by batching and compressing the files. We've improved the saving performance by including a background file uploader and also giving you the ability to switch on and off the generation of mass properties and neutral files.